Sometimes I've found myself describing a series that has a unique twist and say to myself, it's great to see this sort of thing, only to realize later that I've said that about a lot of conflicting narratives. It's great to see a romance anime that has no weird twists, is something I'm quite sure that I've said, or at least thought before, and yet the first thing that I wrote down when trying to come up with a script for this video was, it's great to see a romance anime that has this kind of weird twist to it. Only to think about my hypocrisy for about 20 minutes. Really, I think that the heart of my message is present in both cases, but I don't think deeply enough about it to go beyond that one initial thought. What I really mean is, it's great to see a romance anime that is engaging. I have watched both good and bad anime that have twists that don't benefit the narrative, so they become superfluous or grating on the story. Likewise, I have seen anime that don't have any weird twists at all, but are played so straight that there's no uniqueness to it, and it just sort of fades away into the vast sea of all other shows like it. So today we're going to look at a well-written show that I want to hope will not fade from our memories anytime soon. This first reaction is brought to you by viewers like you. Thank you. Bunny Girl Senpai follows the story of a young second-year high school student, Sakuta. Sakuta, over the course of several episodes, finds himself involved with something called adolescence syndrome, a badly explained disease that seems to cover a bunch of symptoms described as, well, anything weird. But more so sounds like some kind of weird fantasy-made real version of Chunibyo, just instead of all the supernatural junk being a shared experience in the imagination of those infected, adolescence syndrome has some surprising effects on the real world, starting off with how it affects Sakuta's older classmate, Mai. Mai is a former child actress and idol currently on leave of absence from the spotlight to attend school and take a break from that glamour life for a variety of reasons that the show briefly gets into. She's affected by the show's syndrome by no longer being observed by the general public. People stop seeing her, acknowledging her existence, even forgetting that she existed. This, over the course of the first few episodes, extends further and further in distance with each passing day until the only person that seems to even know that Mai exists is our protagonist, Sakuta. Of course, like these shows tend to do, there is romantic tension between our leads, and Sakuta becomes involved in Mai's life and situation, dedicating himself both to her care and to hopefully solving her situation. Mai is currently one of the better things about the series, both in her attitude towards what's going on with her, and in general, her personality has been a highlight of the show so far. Much more so, I would say, than Sakuta, who just kinda comes off as a snarky jerk who suddenly has a heart. Sakuta as a character is only made better with his relationship with Mai, and their interactions have slowly become something that I'm really enjoying watching each week, but there are parts of the narrative dealing with the show's mystery syndrome and how Sakuta deals with it that gives me pause on occasion, while others that make me intrigued. Like, sometimes I wonder about the reality of such a situation and how I would react personally. Like, I remember my first time watching The Disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya, watching the character of Kyon coming to the realization that the world he currently stands in is subtly different than the world he occupied only a day before. I remember thinking, why does he, after confirming the situation, still try so desperately to talk to people about the old world when not only does he already know the result of that conversation, but will look like a guy who's lost his mind to everyone else? Like, this happens in Bunny Girl Senpai to Sakuta as well. He's confronted by Mai's situation and comes to accept it as fact, but even as her condition spreads to more and more locations, he still seems surprised and angry that people start to forget about her existence. Would I act this way given the same set of circumstances? Or would I take it even worse than they do and simply go mad? These are the kinds of questions that I end up asking myself, and while I'll never have a concrete answer on what I would do, it does help me further appreciate the story that this show is trying to tell because of it. Where the story goes from here is what worries me. Now, this video was made before episode 4 has come out and before I have watched episode 4, even though it might be already out by the time you watch this video. But as far as I'm concerned, we could just end the story here after episode 3 and everything would be fine. Everything would be great, even. But I know that Mai is not the only character dealing with the show's touted syndrome, and the show will start to introduce other female characters with other unique problems that I can only assume Sakuta will attempt to solve. But how Mai will play into the story from here on out will be how much I care about the further narrative. We've established a romantic relationship between our leads, but now with other female characters being introduced, I'm worried that we'll start to lean into harem territory, as Sakuta doesn't necessarily seem like an individual who would not get himself into situations that might give girls around him the wrong idea. What's worse is that since I don't particularly care about Sakuta as a character, making the rest of the story revolve around him doesn't necessarily make me confident on how I think I'm going to enjoy the show going forward. Now, if the show was about Mai, I'm quite sure I would enjoy the hell out of it, but with that not being the case, I can only hope for the best. Regardless of how episode 4 and beyond plays out, one can reasonably watch the initial 3 episodes of Bunny Girl Senpai and feel like they are watching a short but complete romance film with a supernatural twist. It takes just over an hour to get through all of the first 3 episodes if you skip the OP and ED past, the first episode so you can watch them. And even if the plot goes to shit later, these 3 in a bubble are worth recommending alone. But this is only my first reaction to the series. Perhaps everything will turn out quite a bit different. Thank you for joining me for this very quick discussion. There will be streaming links down in the description should you require them, and let me know down in the comments what you have been following this season, and hopefully we will make a video about it in future. A big thank you to all of my patrons who make these videos possible, and until next time, watch more anime and stay frosty.